We're now going to go to another part of the world, to Europe. Samuel's the head of Europe for Homelike, based out of Germany. He's going to talk about the power of technology in a marketplace. Samuel, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Good morning to everyone. I'm Samuel, head of Europe at Homelike. I remember 5 years ago, I was on this stage in Madrid, in the Property Portal Watching Madrid conference, and back then we were a very tiny German company that recently launched in the UK and Spain, and we were offering serviced apartments to corporates, no? That was it. 5 years later, we've become the largest flex living platform in the world with 300,000 units in 73 countries. And nowadays, we offer almost everything from co-livings, serviced apartments, private landlords, professional property managers, to almost everyone, corporates, but also professionals, private individuals, students, etc. And how come we've grown that fast in 5 years? First of all, a lot of supply operations and demand optimization. Secondly, M&A. Last year, we were acquired by a UK company that unlocked a lot of portfolio in the Americas, APAC, and Africa. And lastly, technology. Because technology is the only way to scale a marketplace. Simon was talking about transactions. Today, we're going to talk about transactions because we are a transactional marketplace because we get a commission out of the entire operation when booking, right? So basically, what we want to achieve is to become this reference for anyone looking for accommodation for over a month. Let's say that we want to try to be this Airbnb for monthly stays, right? And the idea is basically, okay, how can we actually use technology to scale these operations? Because we cannot hire thousands of people to work on sales. We cannot hire thousands of developers to work on technology. And the idea behind this presentation is to show you some examples of what we are doing in order to push technology to foster our growth. I mean, I guess that everyone is quite familiar with this, let's say, equation. So on one side, we have supply, which are property managers, landlords, serviced apartments, but also private landlords, like any one of us here. On the other side, we have the demand. Demand are corporates that are relocating their employees, professionals working remotely, digital nomads, or students looking for an accommodation for like a semester abroad, right? And in the middle, we try to be this engine, that connects in a very smooth way supply and demand, no? But as you can see, and you possibly know it, technology on the mid-term market is very far from the technology in the short-stay market, no? Where you have channel managers, PMS, a lot of investment there. So we are trying to get a little bit and close the gap with the short-stay industry. And you know what happens, when there is oversupply or over-demand. In markets that are completely oversupplied, and there are a couple that are oversupplied already, you have disengaged supply, and that generates a lack of trust in your product, potentially loss of suppliers, and ultimately loss of relevance in the market. What happens in markets that are over-demanded, which I would say it's 95% of the markets nowadays, especially in cities, in big cities? We see frustration on the guests. It's overpriced, because at the end, suppliers have this power of leverage in pricing. Then we have mismatch in expectations, and there is a loss of control of suppliers, because they actually own the market. And today, I want to show you 4 examples, 2 on the demand side and 2 on the supply side. It's quite clear that demand is guiding everyone, no? I mean, there is no need for a marketplace if there is no demand. The first example I want to introduce is the ranking algorithm, right? How we are actually showing properties to our users. And why is this important? First of all, because we want to show to our users relevant apartments, so apartments that they are likely to book. You don't want to show super expensive apartments or not available apartments. We want to actually work on a model that actually is catered for every persona. However, this has a lot of challenges. The first challenge is diversification of data, right? Because at the moment we're having B2B companies coming to the platform, individuals, students, digital nomads. How we actually offer to you your right apartment, right? Secondly, there is this fine line between relevancy and recency, because marketplaces, they tend to actually push up results that are based on recency. And lastly, addressing the user intent, right? So at the end, someone looking for an apartment of £2,000 in London for the 1st of October, they don't want to see an apartment of £5,000 in the southeast London when he is looking for northwest, available on the 1st of March, right? And what we've done to improve, how are we actually taking all these variables, all these factors into a model? First of all, we are kind of prioritizing those properties that have a higher conversion rate based on the booking mode. So we are kind of prioritizing instant bookable apartments, based on the supplier history, how was the behavior of this supplier, and the reviews, because we are actually very obsessed about our NPS and how actually our suppliers behave towards the guests. Secondly, we are prioritizing apartments based on price and availability, and we'll go a little bit more in detail afterwards when it comes to price and availabilities. And lastly, the location in the map, especially for big cities, if I want to live in the north of London, I won't be looking in the south, even if the apartments are cheaper or even if the apartments are available sooner. And we are also applying penalties, penalties for very expensive apartments, penalty for suppliers that are not offering flexible conditions, like, for example, cancellation policies, and also we are applying penalties when we spot a potential error. This is very tough. I mean, modeling all these variables for different personas in a, say, a small startup is very tough, and has meant a lot of resources and human capital into this. However, it's very worth it. Okay? Why is worth it? And I can give you very concrete examples. And I think that our investors will hate me when they see these numbers. But on one side, our session to opportunity, which means how many of the users that land on Homelike left a booking request, has gone from 0.2 to 1%. This is massive. It's 4 times more booking requests than before applying this ranking algorithm. Secondly, people that land on the apartments page and they left the booking, it actually doubled due to a ranking algorithm. And lastly, our revenue per session increased by 30%. When you see these results, you actually realize, okay, it was worth it not to invest that amount of time and resources on the ranking algorithm. Secondly, the second example on the demand side is basically AI, I'm a little bit embarrassed to show our chatbot because it's super simple and super basic, but I want to give you a little bit of an insight of where we are heading and what we are planning to do. At the moment, the chatbot we have, super basic, Like it actually scraps all the Zendesk tickets that we've created through the entire history of Homelike. Then we look for the keywords that the user is actually using, and then we apply more or less the most common answer into that, So I would say that it's not super elaborated at the moment, The only, let's say, advantages of it is, one, we are offering 24/7 support. Back then, for the ones that work in Germany, after 5, it's a little complex to find anyone there. Secondly, we are offering throughout the entire week this support. And lastly, we are actually avoiding the situations where tenants or guests, no one is picking up the phone or they are not receiving the right answer. So very simple chatbot that I think that almost any marketplace is using. However, I want to introduce you the phase number 2, what we are working at the moment. So what we are working at the moment is on a chatbot that is going to be able to reply to all the reviews. At the end, reviews is what actually marks if a marketplace is trusted or not. And at the moment, there is no marketplace in the midterm industry that has review on all the apartments. There is not a single one. And by using chatbots, we want to automatically reply to all these reviews, creating a lot of trust into the brand. Secondly, upselling. Yesterday, and there was speakers saying, it won't be impossible to replace, let's say, key account managers and sales managers. I agree on that. However, I think that chatbots, and we are working on a chatbot that will be able to offer to you an expensive apartment or kind of convince you of why you should be using one expensive apartment over another one. Third one, which is, in my opinion, super crazy, and our tech team is actually working on a model that is going to be able to predict the mood of the consumer. Is he or she angry? Is frustrated? And is he curious? Is she only window shopping? In order to use different keywords so we can actually guide this conversation appropriately. And lastly, which for me is the most important application on the operational side, is creating tasks. Just imagine there is a review saying, hey, I just checked in the apartment with my dog, and the landlord told me pets are not allowed. And the listing said that pets were allowed. So we're actually working on a chatbot which is going to collect this feedback and automatically go into the back end of the property and immediately change that on the listing. This is crazy from an operational point of view. It's going to save a lot of potential customer care issues in the future, and actually goes with this obsession of creating a very trusted marketplace. Here you have more or less an example of what we are trying to achieve with all these applications, but this is going to come at the end of this quarter. But yeah, we've been talking about demand, but there is no way we can cater demand if we don't have proper supply, right? And I want to show you two examples: how we're using technology to grow in supply, and how we are using technology to have this supply engaged. On one side, here you can see the heat map of London. No? These are requests, searches, and the tenants they do in the city, right? So through heat maps, we are able to capture the demand, to understand where they are looking for, what they are looking for, in which price range, what typology of supply they need. So, we have the data, to kind of predict demand and to cater supply for this demand. And that's why we came up with this concept, supply relevant. Because when you actually go and you hear speeches from marketplaces, they say supply, supply, supply. I disagree with that, no? I actually think it's very important to understand the relevant supply for your marketplace. And for Homelike, relevant supply means, is it in the right place? Price range, which is the availability of that apartment, which is the length of stay, which is the the booking window for that property. And that, once you have everything defined, then you can actually go to the market and say, I need this type of supply. So on the outbound side, it's relatively easy, no? I already did my analysis. I know what supply relevant is. I'm just going to tell my sales team to actually acquire this kind of supply. But what happens with inbound? No? All these leads, all these landlords, these property managers, these co-living operators, as they say, okay, I want to put my apartment on, or I want to put my properties on Homelike. In the past, the process was super manual. No? You actually sign up, you actually filled up a registration form, we were calling you and saying, okay, do you meet this, what do you need, etc. And that was a super lengthy process that was killing the conversion rate. However, there is another thin line between optimization of the supply onboarding and trust. Because if you allow a marketplace to post everything, there's going to be plenty of scams and frauds. Yesterday, we were seeing that it's quite common in the Middle East. It's still very common in Europe as well, frauds and fake listings. So you need to introduce somehow a verification tool. And that implies, unfortunately, a lot of human capital deployment. That's why we came up with a solution. Okay, we are not able to build our own supply onboarding funnel. So what we are going to do is actually understand the market, if there are plugins, if there are tech solutions, features that is going to allow me to automatically verify suppliers, get the proof of ownership of the apartments, and do the Stripe verification. And by using this technology, we've saved thousands of hours of manual working. No? In the past, before 2022, there was an average sales cycle of 3 weeks from first touch to converting on the website. Now we have 3 days. And the only reason for that is the application of technology. Here you can see the entire supply onboarding process, and what we do, besides introducing these plugins, is applying a kind of internal spider that we actually send to verify emails, to understand if the properties that are trying to be onboarded are meeting these relevant criteria, and to check the content, right, that the images are correct, that they are not blurry, they're not having the name of the landlord, they're not having the pictures, etc. So as you can see, we're using technology to understand, one, which are the hot areas of the cities, how we can predict demand. Secondly, which is the supplier that is relevant for my users, right? Defining typologies, pricings, availability, etc. And lastly, we are using technology to foster this onboarding process and to make it as automatic as possible without forgetting that we need to add trust and verification into our landlords. And lastly, the last example is ensuring engagement and good metrics, right? Because imagine I have all this supply, I have an amazing funnel to onboard supply. But what do I do with this supply, right? Do I leave it on the platform and that's it, and they're gonna, learn how to behave? No, you actually need a team of account managers, sales executives, etc., to take care of these accounts, right? And if you scale operations, I mean, we've gone from 3 markets to 73 markets, and we haven't multiplied by 5 the amount of key account managers we're having, right? We all know that there are KPIs in marketplaces and to spot and highlight the misperformers or the big performers, right? However, that means, as I said earlier, a lot of human touch. What we've developed is a tool which is going to automatically give you some recommendations and even potentially in the future to apply the changes directly into your listings. We've developed this analytic hub, no? And it's a dashboard where everyone, on the landlord side, they can actually log in, and it shows you how you are doing versus the market. The clicks that you are getting in your properties versus the average in the market, your price of the apartments versus the average price in the market, and the cancellation policy you're using versus the most common cancellation policy used in the market. So what we are creating here is a competitive landscape, so everyone automatically is able to spot, okay, I'm misperforming here, maybe I should change that, no? And on the phase 1, we actually built this dashboard, so landlords could actually automatically go, log in, and check their performance. But what we've developed, and it was launched 2 weeks ago, is this. It's an automatic recommendation tool that goes KPI per KPI and tells you, hey, you are 20% of the market, reduce your prices by 20%. Hey, and your cancellation policy is too strict versus the market average, please apply this cancellation policy. So at the end, we are replacing the job, so the effort of someone calling this landlord and telling him, her to do so. But we are not replacing CAMs. What we are doing is basically getting our key account management team towards the big players. And we are actually focusing to deploy this data to the long tail, not to the 80% of the suppliers that they only represent 20% of the overall revenue. In this way, we are actually making sure that everyone is optimized. So I wanted to close up my presentation with 4 takeaways, okay? And how we are using technology to foster growth, to actually push for a sustainable development of the company. 1, we saw it, improving the ranking algorithm, showing to users what they want to see. Secondly, AI, I would say modeling, and in order to predict, and answer the questions from potential users, and in the future, being able to take care of the reviews and creating automatic tasks. Third, supply growth, to understand which are the hot areas, the unbalanced areas, and to compare, how we are doing versus competition through scrapping and ensure smooth onboarding. And lastly, automated solutions. So how we actually show all the suppliers in the world how they need to optimize their properties. And with that, that's it. I hope that you enjoyed our 4 different ways of applications of technology. Yeah, thanks for having me again.
Samuel, thanks very much. Can we bring up the questions, please? Okay, predicting demand. The first question, predicting demand with tech seems fuzzy, right? Okay, how can you achieve this without falling outside a standard deviation and basically misleading the market?
At the end, our data is not based on booking requests or bookings. Our data is based on the user experience, right? How many users we're bringing to a certain destination. So then we're talking about millions of data points. And when you actually track that, obviously there can be some outliers, especially for cities that we've recently opened, for example, Dubai a couple of weeks ago. But for the big cities, we have a huge historical data, and also we are having a B2B team that is able to predict B2B demand as well.
Okay, so let's do that a bit. I want to understand that a bit deeper, right? How big is the team? How much resource are you putting into doing all this technology?
And we're 100 people. And when it comes to technology, we have 30 people working on the tech team, and the rest is mostly operations.
Mostly operations?
Yes.
Okay.
Still.
Sorry?
Yet, it's still mostly operations.
Still mostly operations, okay. How do you compete against Airbnb?
It's the most common question on the stage.
Yeah.
It's very hard, no? On one side, they are having the brand, which is very powerful. However, Airbnb, they're trying to tap into the mid-term market, but they are making money out of the short-term industry. And for every euro they invest, they actually want to get higher ROIs. And they prefer to invest it on short term than actually on mid-term. And the technology and the dynamics of the mid-term market is very different from the short-term market. So at some point, they prefer to actually get the number one, the short-term vertical, than actually tapping into the mid-term.
Okay. What have been the 2 or 3 biggest headaches in rolling out this in-depth integration of technology into the business?
I mean, when you have, let's say, a relatively small team working on these, you also need to take care of the daily operations, right? When we were deploying the chatbot, the website crashed. And just imagine, a lot of revenue lost into that, and we did it on Friday. So for a weekend, we were not generating any revenues. So as you can see, the fact of being a small, still very small company makes you actually focus on development, but at the same time maintaining the KPIs, and that would be the main pain point.
Okay. It's also good not to release things on a Friday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lesson learned.
Good, very good lesson learned. Okay. How do you manage the bad behavior of the supply with tenants' check-ins?
We are forcing every tenant after 24 hours of check-in to leave a review. And in this way, we are actually making sure we're getting reviews for all the bookings. Otherwise, it's impossible to be physically on the check-in date.
Okay. And from your experience in transactions, can real estate portals do the same?
Well, Idealista is doing that. They've recently launched a transactional model for rooms, and I think that they have way more data than we do. They are way more well-known than we are. And at some point, I see real estate portals moving into a transactional model.
Okay. And last but not least, do you have localization issues? Do the same solutions work in all countries?
We do. We have a lot of issues because you try to scale marketplaces, but the supply is local, and the legislation is local, and the culture is local. So when we tried, just to give you the last example of Dubai, we tried to open at Dubai. We say, okay, let's Stripe verification. Let's onboard 1,000 properties as soon as possible. Then we realized that Stripe for Dubai is asking for another layer of verification. So instead of opening the market in 2 weeks, we opened in 2 months because we need this extra layer of verification. So you need to localize your strategy even you are building a scalable marketplace.
Okay, fantastic. Samuel, like what you're doing. Good luck.
Thank you.
Future growth of the business.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.